I told you I'd be back relatively soon, and I am indeed back with 5 more things to talk about. And before we talk about that stuff, here is my other Friday Night Tokes jersey. As you can see, short sleeve. So this is our definite summer jersey, but usually spring and fall as well, unless the end of the fall or the very start of the spring are a little on the chilly side. But usually the long sleeve is only for the indoor winter season because that arena is chilly as fuck. But anyways, yeah, so we're making our way through the jerseys. This is actually the last one. So yeah, we're going to go back to regular t-shirts next time. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. I've got a book, a movie, and then 3 video games this month. I started crushing video games. I had a lot on the go and didn't get a lot of completions. And then all of a sudden, they all started to line up at the same time, and I started knocking them all out kind of in a row. So, and I actually have another one that I've completed since. So it's actually been 4 really quickly in a row, but we'll save that last one for next time. First up, the book that I read, Star Wars, Crimson Climb. So, as you can tell by maybe the crimson part of the title, this book focuses on Kira from the Han Solo movie, Han's fellow scrum rat on Corellia, and potential love interest. So this book picks up basically right after they get separated at the spaceport when the Lady Proxima's guards or whatever are onto their escape and finally figure out they're at the spaceport and the gate closes on with Han on the one side and Kira still on the other, and Han makes his escape reluctantly while Kira is dragged back to Lady Proxima and the White Worms. So basically, when she does get back in front of Lady Proxima, she is stripped of all her good clothes are taken away, her rank is taken away, she takes a beating from the person that's going to basically take her spot, this bitch named Emma, and she's given barely any rations to survive on. So she has to start from scratch, and she strikes up a bit of a friendship with a thief named Jaglio, who she ends up working with. But Kira's experiences have taught her, well, I'm going to use this person. They're going to be my friend as long as I need them to be my friend. And then if it comes to it, I'll abandon them or I'll sacrifice them, whatever. She basically, the only person she can count on is herself, sort of thing. So that's kind of her attitude going forward. So basically, this movie chronicles her time with the White Worms when she returns to Lady Proxima and kind of trying to work her way back up. And eventually, after some success, she catches the eye of this guy named, a trafficker named Sarkin, who purchases Kira from Lady Proxima, but she still stays with Lady Proxima and does some more jobs because he's not quite ready to take possession of her. And the last thing she does for the White Worms is she ends up working for the Imperials, who have a heavy presence on Corellia all of a sudden, putting together these control boards for Corellian freighters or starships that they're building on Corellia. And one of Lady Proxima's jobs is they got Kira and some other members of the crew in on this to get some inside intel, because later on they stage a big job to rob this factory of all these control boards that have been created by all these people. But really, and Jaglio and Kira are involved in this raid along with a bunch of the other White Worms she grew up with. But really, this is just a feint for what Lady Proxima is really after, which is a whole boatload of Imperial credits, which explains the Stormtrooper presence on the planet. They were there to guard this shipment. So after this mission, Sarkin takes possession of Kira, and the reason he needed all these credits and was in on this job with Lady Proxima is because he owes a whole lot of money to Crimson Dawn and Dryden Voss, who runs Crimson Dawn. So as Kira she's basically brought on with Sarkin to be kind of like his bitch, serving drinks at his functions and stuff like that. But he's very mean to her, beats her all the time. And fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, when Sarkin is dealing with Crimson Dawn, I forget her name. Corinna or something like that, who works for Dryden Voss and Crimson Dawn. Kira catches her eye and she thinks, oh, she might be a useful asset. So it's Dryden Voss when he's trying to get, like, when this guy's trying to pay Dryden Voss back, like Dryden Voss uses leverage on him, and he's like, oh, and I want that girl too, sort of thing, right? So that's how Kira ends up becoming in the employ of Crimson Dawn. And she doesn't start with Dryden Voss. She kind of starts planet bound on this planet or city called Thorum. And there they perform some jobs. She meets her new crew at Crimson Dawn. And it's very different from the places she's been before. She's actually seems like she's part of a team. She's given good clothes. She has her own room. She's clean all the time. She's well fed. So she starts getting a little bit soft and punishing herself for becoming soft and getting used to this good life, knowing that when shit all goes to hell, I can only rely on myself. So she tries to keep that edge while at the same time enjoying these creature comforts of working for Crimson Dawn. So eventually she works her way up. She has to, like, deal with betrayal from people on her own side and scheming. But eventually she ends up on the First Light, which is the ship that is Dryden Voss's basic headquarters. And he trains her in combat and whatever. And at first he's not mistrustful of her, but he basically keeps her on a short leash. But as she keeps playing the part, she keeps gaining his trust until she basically becomes his right-hand person, right? And eventually her old crew on Thorum eventually get onto the First Light and whatever. And the last kind of job they pull before the story ends is Kira leads a mission to this planet where there's this temple that there's supposed to be this relic regarding the Force that Force sensitives cannot touch. So Dryden Voss is like, oh, our client really wants this and it's worth our while to do it. It ends up the client is the person who runs not just Crimson Dawn, but a whole bunch of syndicates. And as we know at the end of the Han Solo movie, it's Darth Maul, right? So Darth Maul is the one who wants this artifact. And after Kira and her team retrieve it, the last thing we see before the book closes off is she's basically going to deliver this artifact to Darth Maul personally. So that kind of sets up what happens at the end of the Han Solo movie when Darth Maul comes up on that holo call with her right at the end of the movie and blew my fucking mind, right? So that was kind of a cool tie-in. A good story, quick-paced, but it's for more younger readers, so it wasn't like super detailed or anything, but just a nice, easy reading story with lots of adventure and intrigue and betrayal and backstabbing and of course Darth Maul. So yeah, I liked it. I loved it. It was great. I love the Han Solo movie. I think it kind of got mixed. It didn't get totally shit on, but it got some real mixed reviews. I quite enjoyed it. So, take that for what it's worth. And that book was from 2023, so it's fairly recent. Next up, I never got to see this in the theater because I was in the process of getting ready to move and separating from the wife and packing up the house and all that bullshit. And by the time I was finally recovered from all that nonsense and moved into my new place and settled, it was out of the theaters. So, the movie in question is Transformers 1. So this is an animated movie that's basically like a prequel to all the Transformers movies, kind of like an origin story. So basically, in this story, Cybertron is in things are okay on Cybertron, but they're in a bit of a state of uncertainty because basically Energon, for the longest time, has been flowing freely across the surface of the planet. But after the 13 Primes were attacked by the Quintessons and defeated by the Quintessons, and the Matrix of Leadership was lost, the Energon has stopped flowing. So basically, certain Transformers are required to be mining bots. And Orion Pax, who eventually becomes Optimus Prime, and his best friend D16, who eventually becomes Megatron, are two of these mining bots. So they go down under the surface of the planet, risk their lives to uncover these pockets of energon and keep everything on the planet, all the bots, all the tech, continuing to function, sort of thing. So, but Orion Pax is a big history buff, and he's determined the matrix of leadership is out there, and he can be the one to find it if only he can figure out the clues. So he's always scavenging in his off time, trying to like raid old archive databases and trying to find these clues as to where the matrix of leadership might have gone to, and that's where the movie kind of opens up, is him on one of these adventures where he gets caught by security bots and gets chased across the surface of Cybertron, sort of thing, before D16 can bail him out. So Sentinel Prime is kind of the leader of all the Transformers on Cybertron, and he's always going off on missions to the top side to try and look for the matrix of leadership. And as the movie is in its earliest stages, he returns from one of these missions and says, "Sorry guys, I did not find the matrix of leadership. Don't let this bring you down. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna keep trying. And in the meantime, guess what? All of you get tomorrow off from mining because there's the big race tomorrow." So there's this big race going on, and all the mining bots always look forward to watching the race, but none of them can participate in it because they don't have their transforming cogs. So they are stuck in robot form. So Orion Pax, being the idealistic robot that he is, takes D16 to this really cool vantage point to watch the race, but he's got a secret plan for them to participate in the race. So he straps jetpacks on them both, and they enter the race. And they climb up, they fall back, they climb up. They're actually in the process of approaching the finish line and about to win it when disaster strikes, and they end up getting passed by everybody. But afterwards, they're all dejected, and D16's like, "Oh my god, they're gonna have our asses for this. We're gonna get demoted down to garbage recycling and blah blah blah." But Sentinel Prime comes and pays them a visit and says, "I loved it. All the miners are jacked up seeing what you guys did. You inspired everybody. How would you guys like to go around and talk to all the miners and inspire them and tell them they could be whatever they want to be and increase production, whatever?" So like the two of them are like stoked. They thought they were in shit, but now it's like, fuck, we're heroes, right? But Darkwing, who is a kind of foreman in the mine, who they pissed off on an earlier adventure, comes and intercepts the two after their little meeting with Sentinel Prime. Sentinel Prime promised the two, "Yeah, you can come use my personal facilities to get all repaired before you go out." But Darkwing intercepts them and is like, "You motherfuckers are gonna pay." And he drops them down this chute down into the garbage area where they meet B-127, Bumblebee, and are informed there's no escape from these lower levels. So the two of them are like, "The fuck?" So as they're talking to B, they're basically in garbage. All the tech that's dropped on the conveyor belt, they have to go through it, salvage anything that might be useful before the rest of it goes into the incinerator. While investigating some of the scrap Bumblebee had saved, a little chip falls out of one of them and turns on, and it looks like it's the coordinates to something. And Orion Pax is determined that this is a clue as to where the matrix of leadership is located. So eventually they do find a way out. B comes with them. They meet up with the Elita One on the planet once they make their way back to the surface, or to the upper levels. And eventually Elita One is trying to like get them caught because she didn't appreciate their attitude as miners, because she was kind of like their foreman. And when they get into this kind of chase with her, they end up getting to the surface of Cybertron and start exploring it and set their differences aside, and they find a cave where the wreckage of all the 13 primes are. So it's kind of spooky, and as they investigate it all, they find out that Alpha Trion is actually still alive. He's just been in stasis. So he comes back online, and he informs these four, after they talk about what they're doing. They're looking for the Matrix, blah, blah, blah. Sentinel Prime's looking for the Matrix, blah, blah, blah. And Alphatron's like, "Sentinel Prime? He's a traitor." So he tells them the truth of what actually happened is that Sentinel Prime betrayed the 13 Primes to the Quintessons, got them all killed in exchange for him basically ruling over the planet. And part of what he's done once the Matrix was lost and everything is that he steals all the transforming cogs out of a lot of the robots when they're first born, and relegates them to a life of mining because he needs energon sort of thing to run the planet. So so the truth is revealed. So from that point onwards, it's basically a fight between these four main characters and Sentinel Prime, and these four inspire all the mining bots, all the other Transformers to rise up and fight against Sentinel Prime. But in the process of fighting against Sentinel Prime, Orion Pax is using his brain, whereas D16 is so angered by this that him and Orion Pax, in dealing with Sentinel Prime, come to heads about the methods. So this is the birth of the Optimus Prime versus Megatron feud, the earliest beginnings of that. And while the two of them are fighting, Megatron, after he converts to Megatron from D16, looks like he has killed Orion Pax. He knocks them off this cliff after he basically takes his arm off, and Orion Pax falls through the lower levels of Cybertron, while the war up top between Sentinel and Megatron and all the other robots is continues to happen. But as Orion Pax falls into the center of Cybertron, the basically like the ghosts of the 13 Primes come out of the center of the planet and say, Orion Pax, you have been deemed worthy with your selfless acts and whatever, and they bestow him the Matrix of Leadership, rejuvenating him and turning him into Optimus Prime. He returns to the surface. Boom, we got Optimus Prime versus Megatron, and it's a pretty fucking epic battle. Optimus gets the better of him in the end and says, you're banished. Get the fuck out. So he takes off. Soundwave, Shockwave, all the Seekers, and all of his followers basically take off after him, and that's kind of how the movie ends. So it's kind of this little prequel that sets up, how did these two sides initially come to blows, sort of thing. So awesome movie. Animation was amazing, so many funny parts, lots of great action. They didn't throw any of that fucking woke bullshit that they put in the Earthspark cartoon. It was just a fantastic movie from start to finish. They messed with the origin stories a little bit, but not that badly, and the story they came up with was still a really cool one, so it doesn't really matter, right? So if you haven't seen Transformers 1, if you like Transformers, even if you just like animated adventure movies, it's fucking fantastic. It was a real pleasure to watch, and I actually watched it 4 times because I've been so tired lately. Like, I got through the first third of the movie, and then I started falling asleep. Not because it was bad or boring, it's just that I'm so fucking old and tired. And then I watched it again a second time, got through more of it, and then James was over one weekend, and I'm like, do you want to watch Transformers 1? He's like, hell yeah. So then we watched it again, but then he started falling asleep, so we had to rewatch it again the next day for him to see the rest of it. So I've actually watched it like 4 times, not watching it all the way through each time, but obviously watching most of it each time. So so I got to experience the movie in all of its glory several times, and that's not a bad thing. So next up, we're into the last 3 things, all video games. There have been so many new, older style video games coming out that I've gotten, and more still to come out that I'm really excited about. But the granddaddy of them all, that I was looking the most forward to, was this one. Are you ready for it? It kind of coincides with a lot of my toy unboxings lately, a lot of the comics I buy. You get it? It's G.I. Joe, The Wrath of Cobra. When this was announced, I was so jacked. Unlike Transformers, which they've done a lot with over the years, since that original cartoon in 1984, there have been several cartoon series that have come after it. The comics have continued. The toys have continued. All the live action movies. Now an animated movie. There has been so much Transformers. Lots of video games. G.I. Joe and Transformers, to me, as a kid in 1984 were basically equal. They both came out with a kick-ass cartoon. They both had a movie partway through the cartoon run that was amazing. And they both had amazing toy lines, great comics. I don't know why G.I. Joe didn't take off in the future and they kept doing things with it, whereas they did heavily with Transformers. So there's not a lot of G.I. Joe stuff out there. So when this game was announced, I was like fully on board. Don't care if it's good, don't care if it's bad. It's G.I. Joe. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna play the shit out of it. So, but after it was announced, it kept getting delayed. It seemed to take forever to come out, but it finally did. In late 2024, I got it right away and I played it to death. So basically the story is, I think they actually did this in the cartoon, and they've done this in other cartoons too. Basically Cobra uses a shrink ray to shrink down all the world's most precious monuments and takes them ransom, basically telling the world like, fuck you, you gotta do whatever we want, give us whatever we want, or all of your precious monuments, yeah, they're gone, sort of thing. And also there was a bit of cloning stuff going on. Cobra Commander ended up cloning himself in Destro, which created a bit of comedic moments in some of the cutscenes. But the main thing was the monuments, and so the G.I. Joe team was mobilized to combat Cobra on this scheme, sort of thing. So basically there's 12 levels in the game. Initially you have, how many characters? You have Duke, Snake Eyes, Scarlet, Roadblock, Duke, Snake Eyes, Scarlet, Roadblock. I feel like I'm missing one. Maybe not. Maybe it's just the 4 of them. And then as you play through the game, when you defeat enemies, these little old school like 1980s, 1990s floppy disks end up being left behind. So you collect all them, and with those floppy disks you can unlock all sorts of extras in the extras menu, and 2 of these things are extra characters, so you can also get Gung Ho and Ripcord as extra playable characters. So those are the first things I unlocked. Other things is you can do an enemy shuffle, so the enemies you face through each level are all shuffled up, so you may get an enemy you don't see until one of the later levels who's a lot harder. Might be in one of the first levels, like you don't know who you're going to get. They have one for weapon and item shuffle as well. They have one hit mode where you just have to hit the enemy once and they die, but same for you, and a whole bunch of other stuff too. There's lots of unlocks to add to the game to make it more interesting. And yeah, so you basically play through these 12 levels, bring down Cobra Commander, stop his plan, and win the game. There's lots of weapons you can pick up, lots of different types of guns. The coolest part of it is that each character is very different from the other. They all have kind of unique attacks. For example, like it's pretty standard when you have characters in a game that you can swap between, that when they do a jump and then a kick, it's a standard jump kick no matter which character you're using. But in this game it's very different. Like Duke has a jump kick, Scarlet jumps in the air and then fires her bow and arrow, which takes a different trajectory than Duke's jump kick. Gung Ho jumps up in the air and then points his gun at the ground and drops a bomb down. So they all have these different moves that you have to be conscious of and time properly in order for them to hit. So they keep you thinking between the characters. It's really neat. And then they also have a special attack that's different between each character. So you have to know kind of what that's all about when you know the proper time and spacing to kind of unleash it. Snake Eyes was my favorite. When you use Snake Eyes, Timber the wolf, his wolf shows up and he just starts chomping on people and he's fucking savage. So yeah, lots of playable characters, lots of cool environments. I can't say enough about this game. I played it like crazy. To obtain enough floppy disks to get all of the unlocks in the game, you have to play the game a lot. So just in the process of getting those floppies, I replayed every level countless times, and I loved every minute of it too. So if you do want to play the game and you do want to get floppies fast, there is a one of the extras, I forget what it is. What is it? Oh, it doubles the enemy count or something like that. So if you go to, I think it's the 4th or 5th level. It's kind of in a Middle East, like Indiana Jones type theme with, you know, the sandy town with the stucco walls, and in the end you end up in this kind of temple with Destro and Cobra watching you fight in kind of like a gladiator pit. There are so many enemies in that level, and it's one of the earlier levels, so it's not that hard. That if you turn on that double enemy or whatever it is, you get so many floppies doing that run. You get 500 plus each time. So I would, if you want to get through the floppies fast and get all your unlocks, I would get that one first and just do that level a bunch of times, and you'll collect them way quicker than just by going through the game regularly without that unlock sort of thing. So but yeah, I can't say enough about this game. The story was great, the gameplay was great, the levels, all the iconic G.I. Joe things. There's so many things, and there's some of the, you don't get to drive any vehicles, but they do show up. Like the Cobra Ferret, the little blue ATV that they always drove. It's one of the enemies you have to face from time to time. It looks so sick. Like, they did a really, really good job with this game. The only complaint I have, which is a standard complaint I always have about G.I. Joe games, is that they use the same original, most popular characters all the time in their games. Like, Duke's always a character, Snake Eyes, Scarlet, and you might have a couple more. But I wish they would create a G.I. Joe game where you can use every single Joe or Cobra character that was ever in the series. You know, I can pick Airtight, I can pick Ace, I can pick Psych Out. You know, it would be amazing. But they always stick with this main core roster, and they're great characters. I mean, fucking Snake Eyes is my favorite character. But G.I. Joe is such a diverse cartoon and universe with so many cool characters. I would really like to see a game flesh out with every character, and also a game where you could use vehicles and use all the vehicles. You know, they have some flying levels, they have some water-based levels, and you could use like the Devilfish and the hovercraft. You know, like, I just think that would be an amazing fucking game. I would buy that for $80 first day. No problem. I'd pre-order it and get some of the extra content for something like that. So, but who am I? Nobody listens to me, so I'll stop here. Next up, another 2024 game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutants Unleashed. Mutants Unleashed. So this game ties into the Mutant Mayhem animated movie that was out not that long ago, and it picks up right after that movie leaves off, after they defeat what's his name, Superfly, and now mutants are basically accepted all across New York, and everybody's living happily. More mutants are moving to New York and going to the community centers and hanging out and talking to humans. But all of a sudden, some of the mubies start acting up and getting really aggressive. So the turtles are like, in April, are like, what the fuck is happening now? Like, God, we just went through Superfly and now we got these other problems. So they end up trying to figure out what's going on. Bebop and Rocksteady are helping them out, but then they end up turning, and they find out it's after they drink water. So they find out that the water supply is being poisoned by this pheromone that's making all the mubies turn aggressive and violent and basically following somebody's orders. So in the process of trying to find out what's going on here, they find the culprit, a chameleon named Cammy, who has some issues with humans, let's say, based on some of her past experiences that have kind of traumatized her. So she's determined to turn all these mutants into an army for herself and take down the humans, sort of thing. So that's the premise of the game, is that you've got to take down Cammy and stop this from happening. So this game was done by Outright Games, OG, and I've found that their games are pretty basic most of the time and sometimes a little glitchy. This game was actually one of their best efforts. It was a pretty lengthy game. It was very involved. The storyline was really neat, and I found I was always really looking forward to playing it and seeing what happened next. And they give you a lot of side missions along the way as well. There's all these areas on the map. You pick your missions on the map, but there's all these areas you can revisit, like the coffee shop, the park, the community center. And in each of those areas, there's a certain character, well, not in each of them, but in a lot of them, there's a certain character that resides in that area that is specific to one of the turtles, and you go talk to them and do things with them, and that unlocks you the next level of upgrades for that turtle. So as you make your way through the game, earn XP and stuff like that, you can use this XP to purchase extra moves and strengths and abilities for each turtle, sort of thing. So they give you all these side missions that really keep the game interesting, keep it going longer, and you're not just playing straight missions. You're exploring, you're doing a little bit of extra stuff, and they even include a game where you have to look for, kind of like a Pokemon Go. You have to scan these different areas when you're there to find the hidden mutants, sort of thing, and then once you do, you unlock them, sort of thing, and they're in your little inventory. So they have lots of little things along the way that keep you invested in the game and keep it interesting. And there's lots of comedy too, especially with Master Splinter. He has a pretty main role in the cutscenes and the in-betweens, and he's always causing lots of funny moments with the turtles. So really enjoyed the game. It did get a bit glitchy near the end. If you watched any of my gameplay sessions from that, it wasn't I thought it was the very last level, but it was like maybe the third last level. The last couple levels were kind of shorter. It was the last long level, and I tried it a few times. It was hard. I didn't beat it. I finally beat it, and the machine cut out and had one of those system errors and crashed, which had happened a bunch of times. But the one time I actually beat it, and it was just on the load screen afterwards waiting to be saved, and it crapped out before it actually saved. So even though I did beat the level, it didn't count, and I had to do it again. And eventually I just turned the internet connection off on the PS4, and it worked like butter. I played right through all the last number of levels with no problem. So so if you do play the game and you have the same kind of problems I've had, just turn off your internet, and hopefully that works for you. But that was the only real trouble I had with the game. Other than it also has extremely long load times between levels and stuff like that, which was kind of annoying. But other than that, especially for an outright games game, I felt that this one was really well done. Had a really interesting story, really interesting design and layout, and yeah, it just was lots of fun. Simple as that. Fun is good. Next up, last up, Transformers Galactic Trials. Also an outright games title. This one was really good as well, and it had no glitching at all. This is probably their smoothest game to date. So the story on this game is that Nemesis Prime has raided Cybertron for all of the Prime artifacts, and he's trying to escape Cybertron, but he's shot down by the planet's automated defenses, and all of these artifacts and relics that he's collected are kind of scattered into the cosmos. So he's injured, he goes into hiding or whatever, and basically the Galactic Trials are set up to basically try and retrieve these artifacts. Basically what the Galactic Trials are, they are a contest for Autobots and Decepticons that takes the shape of races. But they're not just straight vehicle mode races. Each track has a section or multiple sections where suddenly you're transforming into robot mode with your blaster, your weapon of choice, and you are firing away at drones and troopers and each other, your fellow combatants, to try and get through that first and get back onto the track and win the race, sort of thing. And when you do complete a circuit, there's 3 different types of circuits in Galactic Trials, Rookie, Expert, and then Prime. When you complete a circuit, you are awarded one of these Prime artifacts that or relics that Nemesis Prime has lost. And as you make your way through the game and you complete these circuits enough, you'll eventually unlock them all. And what these relics and artifacts do is when you set out for a race, you have 3 relic slots you can equip. So at the start of each race, you are given a random choice of which artifacts you want to equip. They can increase your speed and acceleration. They can increase your weapon damage. They can increase your bash damage when you're ramming people on the track in car mode. They can increase your health, your shield, all sorts of stuff. So depending on which character you're using, if you're using a fast guy who's lighter and weaker, you're going to want to beef up their HP and their shield first and foremost. Whereas if you're using a big guy who's tough like Megatron and Prime, you're going to want to focus on their speed and acceleration. And they'll also give you weapon options to swap out of your standard weapon sort of thing. And so as you go through the game, you can unlock all the various weapons in the game by fulfilling certain requirements. If you do choose it when it's offered as an option during your circuit, if you do certain things with that weapon while you are using it, like destroy these many troopers and then destroy Megatron once with the game, you'll with the weapon, you'll permanently unlock that weapon going forward as something you can choose from the outset. And there are 11 characters in the game. Let's see if I can remember them all. There's Bumblebee, Prime, Wheeljack, Alita 1, RC, that's 5. Yeah, 5 Autobots. Then there's Megatron, Soundwave, Shockwave, Flame War, Nightbird on the Decepticon side of things. And then the 11th is Nemesis Prime. So what you do is start on the rookie circuit, and each character can upgrade with their XP up to level 10. So you start at level 0, and as you win races and perform certain tasks in these races, like every time you blow up a trooper, you get 50 points. Every time you blow up a drone, you get 50 points. If you're first to enter a combat zone, you get 300. If you're first to exit it, you get another 300. So there's all these things you can do during the races to earn extra XP. And this XP is what helps you upgrade each Transformer to the next level. And when you do reach the next level, you're rewarded with something like a permanent speed upgrade or a permanent weapon upgrade, something like that. So it's not just for pride, it's for making each character the best that they can be. So just like with G.I. Joe, I played the living bejesus out of this game because I wanted to unlock every character, because not all of them are available from the outset. Just like with the weapons, you have to do some specific tasks within the game to unlock those locked characters. And so I had to play through to unlock all the weapons, unlock all the relics and artifacts, unlock the rest of the characters, and then level up all 11 characters to level 10. So that was no small feat. It took a long time, but the interesting thing is you really like a game when you can play it repeatedly, the same tracks, just with a different character, and it never gets old. You just have fun every time you're out playing it, sort of thing. And that's what I had. That's the experience I had with this game. So I really, really enjoyed it, and I hope they do something else like that with this franchise, because it was a kind of a cool concept. And I, like I said, I really enjoyed it. So, and again, outright games. The Turtles game was good. A little bit glitchy here and there. Load times weren't great. Galactic Trials, well, they stepped it up. Smooth as stone, looked great, played great. Load times weren't that bad. No glitching. So it seems like that studio is definitely improving their finished product. So, and you know what? A Turtles game and a Transformers game. They're picking the right franchises too, at least for this guy. So anyways, those are the 5 things I completed recently. I loved them all. I can't wait for the next 5. And neither, I bet, can you.
Meow.